So sexual activity, right, is like the roof of the house. So, and obviously nobody, at least I don't know this, like you can correct me, but I don't know that anybody's built a house from the roof down. There are some
Mhm.
things that need to, you talked about affection and affection being, you seeing improvements in that area. You, you have to kind of build on that in a way that builds the anticipation, right? So you
Mhm.
talked about, to use your example, talked about the compliment on the legs, right? So following the compliment on the legs might actually be grabbing them or touching things now help
Mhm.
you to now kind of, because I understand what you said, what you're saying. I've been there. I understand. We like, I don't want to bring it up. I'm not sure if I, you don't know how to approach it based on the scenario. Those kinds of things help to ease that. It helps to grow your bond in such a way that there isn't too much ambiguity there, and you begin to kind of feel each other's energy in that regard. And so, if somebody gets close in the bed, or if somebody makes these certain moves because of what you've been doing, you're like, oh, I know where this is going, kind of thing. So you got to kind of work on those things, but you got to determine what those things are, because for everybody those things are different, right?
Yeah.
So some people it's a lot of heavy petting, some people it's different things, right? And so you got to
Mhm.
determine what are those things, identify what are those things you like that are outside of sexual activity, but can still create that level of anticipation and that build up that will take you to that moment that you want to be in. You made a statement that hinted in my mind to the option for creativity. So now you got to talk about what that is, because does that mean toys? Does that mean, you got to talk about what that is. So yes, I agree. The conversation has to happen, and maybe to take. I'm using this word, and it may not be awkward, but I'm just using this for the sake of the word, to take the awkwardness out of the conversation. Have the conversation during a moment where it's clear that there's some sexual energy there. Like, for example, let's say sexual activity takes place. So in that afterglow moment, you can start with, not with questions, but you can start with, man, I really loved when you did such and such and such. And you kind of use that ice cream sandwich method,
Yeah.
where you're like, man, I really love when you did such and such and such. I would love if you do that when I'm getting out of the shower. Because you're in that moment where the euphoria is there, the hormones are still kind of rage, and
Yeah.
you can kind of talk through some of that. I'll say this for as it relates to frequency, right? And obviously you have to determine what you feel like the gaps are. But I would say, and you don't have to answer this, but this is something that you guys could talk about when the time is right. What are the things that clearly create arousal and just are like, you know, let's go. It's go time kinds of actions, or things that wears, or certain fragrances or lotions, or just aromas, that kind of thing. Think
Mhm.
about what those are, and how they get you to the place where you're like, hey, and then have that conversation with her, because those are things that she could incorporate. So for example, if there's a perfume, and I'm just using this as an example, there's a perfume that when you smell that, you like, goodness gracious, I'm canceling this next meeting, kind of thing. Then
Mhm.
that's something that now, just in the way of being strategic, is gonna waft by you. So you can get creative and have fun with it when you know what those things are, and then that could help to enhance the mood more often, because it's almost like no brainers that you just can't. They're irresistible, if you will, for lack of a better word. So you can think about what those things are, and you know, it could be certain outfits, certain things she may wear to bed, certain kinds of lingerie, whatever it is. that you just like, man, this is too much for me right now. And then you can incorporate those more often. And then that could help build the level of frequency. So that's a conversation that you guys can have. And that doesn't even necessarily have to be an afterglow conversation. That could be a glass of wine and watching your favorite TV show conversation. But there's some specific things that you got to know, like it's certain, what are the erogenous zones? what are the certain touches that work? You know, every time you touch the right side of my neck, it gives me this, you know, whatever it is, like you got to know those things, because those are things you can put in your playbook and you can pull out at any time. Sitting right here, as she's sitting right now, and you're in another room, and then you just like, you know what? I'm about to go touch her neck right there. Because you got all these things now that you have that are specific things. So I would suggest having that conversation. That's a great place to start. That's just hey, tell me about, you know, where the buttons at. And then you just make a commitment to be like, okay, now, and you can have fun with this. And I'm joking when I say this, but I'm really not. You can be like, okay, you've shown me where the buttons are. You can't feel some kind of way when I start with different combinations of these buttons, right? And you know, and you now you know each other, and you know a little bit more about, you know, what you can do and what sets the mood and that. Because I'm gonna tell you, as you begin to create the moments that you're looking to create, you're gonna get more comfortable. Work on creating experiences, and I know you guys are good at that. You know, go out to dinner, and that's not really what I'm talking about. Those are experiences. Don't get me wrong. I know I said in the beginning, experiences they do two things. They have two criteria. They put you in the same place and give you a common goal. But I want you two to specifically start looking to create experiences that not necessarily will lead to sex, but that are very, very romantic. So for example, like, and it don't have to be nothing way outlandish. So you could say, you know what? We're going to have a candlelight dinner. We're going to go in a room where we can dim the lights. We're going to put candles on. And if you like foot rubs and, you know, wine and whatever, it's just an atmosphere that you would think about when you think romance, right? So start being intentional about creating those kinds of experiences. What's going to happen psychologically is that you're already going to yourself in a certain mood and mode to even enjoy that, which now opens the door for some level of conversation, some flirting, all of these little things. And it may not lead to sex, but it allows you to open up that dialogue and get a little bit more comfortable with each other in that space, because the atmosphere and it's conducive to how you're trying to feel.